Tom Macintosh is the head of the Political Studies Department over at the University of Regina. Keenly watching the cabinet announcement this morning. Did anything strike you right out of the gate, Tom?
If one thing struck me, it was not that Gord Wyant was made Deputy Premier. I was sort of expecting that.
Okay.
It was that they gave him education. That was, to me, a signal that this is somewhere where this government wants to sort of try to rebuild some relationships that have been a little frayed over the last few months.
Scott Moe campaigned a lot on being a unification candidate, that he would walk through this, bringing people together. Do you see that reflected in the choices that he's made?
I think on his own terms, yeah. I think he's made the cabinet that he wanted. It reflects the diversity, if you will, in the Sask party in terms of the leadership, bringing those sort of more centrist figures like Wyant and Tina Baudry-Miller back into the cabinet. I think that was really important to him. It's an attempt to heal the kind of rifts that always happen in any party when you go through a leadership, especially if you've got 4 or 5 contenders for leadership. You're bound to get some divisions at the end, and so those need to be healed over.
One of the most controversial cabinet ministers was Bronwyn Armstrong in education. She's been moved out of that portfolio. What are your thoughts on the decision to move her out of education but still retain her in cabinet?
I'm not surprised she was moved. There were too many sort of public controversies. Probably fair to say that she didn't have much of the trust of the stakeholders in the sector any longer. And so I'm not surprised she was moved. I'm also not surprised she stayed in cabinet. She's one of the few women in the cabinet. This is not a caucus with a large percentage of women in it. And she also holds an urban seat, which are also important for the government to hold, given that that's where they seem to be more challenged when it comes to public opinion. So,
would you say there were any misses in these choices?
Not on its own terms. I think this is the cabinet that Moe wanted. You're always limited by whoever's in the caucus, and you're also limited by, in I think this situation, not wanting to completely remake the cabinet, given that we're 2 months or less from a provincial budget, that it would not be a good idea to sort of do a wholesale massive shuffle. And you see, most of the cabinet are holding their seats. So I think in those terms, this is the cabinet that he wanted to design. I suspect a lot of thought went into it before the leadership.
Yeah, this didn't just come together.
This did not come together in the last 48 hours. This has been sort of thought about for a long time. And so I think on his own terms, this is a success for him.
You mentioned the budget that's looming large in the next couple of months. Is that the biggie as this caucus gets to work?
I think without a doubt. This is where the caucus and the cabinet have got to be focused now. Some elements of the budget have been prepared for a while. It's now up to the new ministers and those with new portfolios to get onto their briefs and to understand where things are, and then to start making what will be the final adjustments and changes to the budget. Question will be, how quickly do they want to do that? They may well decide that they can delay it for a little bit, a few weeks, a month, just to make sure that they get the budget they also want.
Can you speculate at all on looking at what the budget could entail after having such a difficult one last year? Could it be as difficult this year?
Well, this will be this is the sort of multi-million-dollar question, if you will, or the billion-dollar question. It was not a popular budget last time. The new premier has said he's sticking to the timeline to balance the budget. That says to me you've got to make more cuts, and you've got to probably also find some revenue, especially if you're going to give up revenue on, the tax on insurance and things like that. If you're going to give up more of those things from last year's budget, you've got to make up for that somehow. So I think we're facing another hard austerity budget. That's not going to sit well with the same people who the last budget. It didn't sit well with them either. So there's some tough decisions that are going to be made.
Thanks for your time today, Tom.
Always happy to do it. Thanks.